What's poppin', y'all? It looks like Joe Sleepwalking Budden has just stepped out of court, feeling himself just like Troy Ave when he made that Dear Hater song. And I know for a fact I think Troy Ave and Joe Budden can't stand each other, but Dear Hater, I won. That's the vibe that Joe Budden was on when he walked out of that courtroom, because if you guys remember, he caught this weird case towards the end of December. It caused him to miss a couple of podcast episodes, a couple of weeks. Eventually, it became public in Edgewater. They even made a press announcement and put out a press release about it. TMZ put out a release about it too, talking about, oh, there were 2 kids that saw him, and I said this was dirty reporting by them because they were trying to make all of these details to try to make Joe Budden weird. And we even had Joe Budden haters throwing up not conspiracy theories, but throwing up their theories that he was actually on some weird stuff, trying to chase somebody down and get into the apartment, and he was lying about sleepwalking. Now, there were some people that had their own theories about why he was sleepwalking, whether that was certain drugs or other things that he may or may not be doing. We're not making that accusation. But Joe Budden addressed all of this on the podcast, and he was having issues with filming inside their studio, where they've got an amazing couch setup and background. Everything in that studio, just the setup is flawless, like chef's kiss to whoever laid that out. Good job. They were able to film there too, so it was kind of like a reunion party. And Joe Budden announces that he beat the case. Now, I can't play you guys the clip because Ian or whoever's running this stuff, they are militant with that stuff. I don't even think I can play the audio. It's just so unfortunate because I don't understand how his podcast is supposed to spread if it's so limited in reach, especially with the clips. Like, I understand why Vlad is militant with it. His stuff lives on the platform, so it makes sense. But with Joe Budden's, it's a little bit different. Regardless, I'm going to read you guys some quotes from Joe Budden. I'll summarize some other aspects, and then we'll just give you my thoughts on it. So he talks about that he had to go to court, sit with the judge, and he said the judge was fair and reasonable. That's all I heard. The testimony was attentive, and she came back and she gave a whole breakdown of everybody who testified, their body languages, their consistencies, inconsistencies, their credibility. And Joe Budden made the remark that she noted that he smirked a couple of times, and he admitted it, and he said, yeah, that lady was getting some crazy stuff off, so he had to hit a couple of smirks. But the judge said by the preponderance of the evidence, she just said, kick rocks, verbatim. That's what Joe Budden said. Not the judge saying that, but I'm quoting Joe Budden. And they got the case out of here. They didn't even charge him. It's out of here. And the thing is, they said the lady was trying to say it was harassment, but there would have to be a case of multiple times, harassment, stalking, whatever else. And then also she was talking about this guy. Clearly he was rocking from side to side. He looked like he needed to use the bathroom. It wasn't lewdness because he wasn't trying to get off on this situation. He wasn't touching himself. He was actually trying to cover himself at one point when he was trying to enter the home, put everything through the keypad, and then eventually he went back. But one of the most amazing things that we got out of this situation is I finally get my question answered, and Joe Budden heard our feedback, which I don't know if anybody else was giving him this feedback. Probably. It's one of the first things that comes to your mind, which is, why are you sleeping naked when you know that you sleepwalk? So he's found not guilty, and as much as people spread this, the fact that he was found not guilty needs to be spread as well. This is why I'm talking about it. It's not such a long topic that I can go into detail about and talk about like other musical related topics, or even the potential of what was going to happen if this lingered and he actually got these charges, which I never thought was going to happen. But he says that he's going to spend a couple of dollars and start sleeping in pajamas, and that he's going to wear some boxer briefs to bed in case he decides to take another stroll. And this answers the question that, well, it doesn't really answer the question, but it gives a solution to a problem that clearly had an unfortunate outcome, which is put some clothes on. If you sleepwalk with clothes on, it is what it is. But I'm interested to know the background story, which is, I might go and listen to the whole podcast if we're able to get the background story. Actually, no, this is what the YouTube comments are for. Because I know there's got to be a couple of people here that watch the Joe Budden podcast. Is there some background story on why this assumed Russian lady has issues with Joe Budden, because for her to like press these charges on him and try to testify and send him to jail for something that we know is an accident, he's probably apologized for it profusely and let her know, like, hey, this is an accident. So she has some sort of an issue with him. And I think in part the issue was that they were recording there. So maybe she was trying to do whatever she could to get him out of that building, get him kicked out, because if it was stalking, harassment, or lewdness, then she'd be able to get a restraining order, get him kicked out of the building, especially if he caught a case like that. And then she would have, not the building all to herself, but she'd have the nuisance of them, whatever nuisance she feels that they are in that premises, gone. That's the only reason I could think of for her to go this far, because I feel like an average, everyday person, if this happened to them, she would just, especially if she didn't know the guy and didn't have any interactions with him, even if he was just a neighbor, and he said, oh, I was just sleepwalking, it's never happened before, and they've known each other, or he's lived there for who knows how long, an extended period of time, I think people would just let it go. Now, if it happened a second time or a third time, I think the average person would start to think a little bit differently. But in this case, she really overreacted, and Joe handled this with grace, with class, with maturity, and with jokes, because people were getting their jokes off on Joe Budden. And he took his licks. He went in there in court, spanked that, hopped out, let everybody know he didn't gloat at anybody. He didn't put his foot on anybody's neck that was hating on him or clowning him to a crazy degree, which some people were dropping hilarious jokes. And he was even able to make fun of the situation. He was talking about his Aunt Catherine was calling him about the situation, and then she had to leave mass and say she was going to make a prayer for him. And everybody that he knows, like, he was getting served by a bartender, and she was asking him, like, yo, is everything okay with whatever happened? It's an embarrassing thing to have out there. It's not like, oh, he got caught with some drugs, which obviously it's not a good thing either. But his case and the fact that he's viral, or not viral, the case went viral in our sphere and in anybody that knew Joe Budden, the news gets out quick with a case like this. It's not like, yo, Joe Budden got caught with some coke, or Joe Budden was speeding and he got pulled over, or Joe Budden had a DUI, which DUI is very, very, very bad. Don't drink and drive. It's, oh, this guy was sleepwalking naked trying to get into someone's house. That's the kind of news you don't want spread, and you don't want to have to explain. Even though you can explain it, oh, I was sleepwalking. It kind of raises an eyebrow to the average person, because how many people do most of us know that's close to us that sleepwalks frequently and goes to sleep naked and then sleepwalks frequently outside into other people's, not property, but trying to get into there. But Joe Budden spanked the case, clean record when it comes to this weird stuff. No charges on there. So we got to put respect on Joe Budden's name, because I know when news like this spreads, people tend to bring it up later on if the correction didn't happen. And then now people like Joe Budden or others have to correct it and be like, no, actually that case got thrown out and he wasn't doing anything weird. So shout out to Joe Budden on that front. He was a good sport about it. The clip was funny, and he can continue doing his thing. I'm glad that they can record at their spot, because it would have been really unfortunate for them to have to go back to that basement, go back to the old setup after they had graduated to this new beautiful setup. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Peace.